Donald Trump says all of the recent Biden-claimed states will be legally challenged for voter fraud and state election fraud. He says there's plenty of proof. How successful do you think he will be, or these legal challenges will be?
Well, Gabrielle, let me just go back, having listened to the report from the U.S. I think one of the things that many media people don't seem to get is the attitude of your regular Trump voters. So one of the things Trump has done is he's not only blowing up the credibility of the pollsters and probably of the old Republican sort of Praetorian Guard, the kind of people that ran the party under George Bush. I think he's also, to a large extent, destroyed the credibility of much of the press in the United States. So when people now say, oh, these supporters of Trump, they haven't got a sort of legal standard of proof of corruption. Well, these people are not stupid. They remember that after Trump won the election, Democrats didn't turn up to his inauguration. They remember that for 2 years, they ran the Mueller report, which in the end found no evidence. They remember that there was an impeachment, which now that we've got the Biden tapes, the emails, the whole basis of that impeachment looks basically flawed. And the one Republican who voted for it was Mitt Romney, and your correspondent, when he introduced Mr. Romney, didn't say, and the one Republican who hates Mr. Trump for the last 4 years has come out and said that. And so one of the things that we notice in the U.S. is there's a divide right down the middle, and half the country does not trust the press. And to some extent, I think the press has brought this on themselves. No skepticism at all about the Russia collusion, no skepticism about the impeachment. Basically covered up the Biden emails, big chunks of the press. And now when they come out and say, we need you people to be a little more skeptical about these claims on cheating that Mr. Trump is making, you will have no impact on this half of the population, because basically they've looked what's happened over the last 4 years, and they see a press that significantly leans towards the Democrats. I don't know what I read. I think 92% of, it's public information in the U.S., but 92% of journalists in the U.S. donate to the Democrats, and so 8%. That's a pretty massive tilt. It's even true at Fox News, by the way, except for the nighttime talent of Tucker Carlson. So it's going to bounce off people like a brick wall, all the claims we're hearing.
On the polls, Trump is describing the polls as suppression polls designed to keep Republican voters staying at home. Is that a stretch, or would that argument actually hold up in a courtroom?
Well, I mean, that's not going to help him. It's a claim that I think what Mr. Trump is saying is that for the last 9 months, we've had polls showing Biden leading by 17, 15, 14, 8. The Washington Post had one that was off by 15 or 16 points in one of the states. But one thing we know for sure, the polls were massively wrong. Now, they might have been wrong because the polling techniques now are terrible, in which case the polling industry is stuffed. If they're that far off, Mr. Trump is going beyond that, and he's saying they knew the polls were wrong and they published them anyway. I have no basis for knowing whether that's true or not. It seems implausible to me. But let's just say the polls were significantly wrong. And the Spectator, I basically predicted what we're seeing, that it was going to be in a massively close race. In the 1970s, you used to get something like a 50% take-up of polling phone calls. So about half the people who were called would answer pollsters. Now it's under 2%. And effectively, the models just don't work. That's pretty clear. We don't know what 2% are answering. There's a significant number of conservatives who won't answer any pollsters. I think it's even worse under Trump, because in many parts of the country, if you admit to being a Trump supporter, you're basically pilloried. So that shy Tory syndrome you'd see in Britain is magnified. And so one thing we know for sure, the polling industry is broken. There is no reason to believe anything that they say, because they don't know how to poll properly. Mr. Trump has gone beyond that. He's claiming it doesn't work and they don't care. I don't know what basis he has for saying that myself.
Trump is filing a lawsuit in Wisconsin, amongst other states. He lost Wisconsin by 20,000 votes. How likely is it that he can prove that if there was voter fraud, that this would have changed the outcome?
Well, I don't really know. It's a big guess. And I think if you go back to 2000 with the Bush and Gore, what they had there was a tangible document with a hanging perforation. What did they call it? Chads. And so you had something physical to point to, and they could recount them. And of course, both sides were trying to restrict which counties you actually counted. Nobody seemed to want all of Florida recounted. And that, in that instance, you had to first go to the Florida court and then to the Supreme Court. And it's, you know, it was dubious whether the Supreme Court had any sort of oversight over a state matter, because in the US, state matters aren't open to being appealed to the Supreme Court. And so they had to find a hook using the US Bill of Rights. So I don't know, but I would imagine that this would first have to go to the top Wisconsin court, or if the argument is run through Pennsylvania, it would have to go through the top Pennsylvania court, and then you would try to go immediately to the US Supreme Court. That's my guess. I can't see how you'd have original jurisdiction in the US Supreme Court. I'm open to being corrected on that. I don't know that you can just go straight to the US Supreme Court. I doubt it.
Yeah,
but maybe, you know, I'm happy for someone to say I'm wrong.